My neighbor expected me to watch her dog every weekend. Because I work from home. When I refused, she dumped the dog in my yard and went on vacation. She laughed and said, "You have nothing better to do." I called animal control and said, "Let's see who picks him up." I live in a small neighborhood just outside Richmond, Virginia. It's not fancy, but people mostly keep to themselves. I bought my house in 2017 after leaving a long career in corporate IT. Now I run my own business from home. It's nothing big, mostly tech support for local companies and a few websites I manage. I converted my garage into a full-time office. I keep odd hours. I like things quiet. I mind my own business. And then came Tara. Tara moved in across the street about 2 years ago. She bought the house from an older couple who moved to Florida. She looked to be in her early 30s. Drove a shiny Jeep, wore a lot of gym clothes, always had loud music coming from her car, always FaceTiming someone on speaker in public. She introduced herself once when I was mowing my lawn. I said hi and kept it moving. I didn't think anything of her at first. She seemed a little entitled, but whatever. We all have our quirks. Then she got a dog. She brought home this big, fluffy golden retriever puppy. I heard her shouting, "Champ!" from her yard for the next 3 weeks straight. At first, I figured it was the usual new dog adjustment. So I've got a dinner thing and then brunch tomorrow. You work from home, right? I just looked at her. Didn't answer yet. Can you keep an eye on Champ for me? Like just make sure he's okay, maybe take him out once. I told her I wasn't comfortable doing that. I don't own a dog for a reason. I like dogs, but I'm not trying to be responsible for someone else's pet. Come on, she said. You're literally always home. It's just for the weekend. It's not like you have anything better to do. I kept it calm. Told her I run a business and I'm not a dog-sitting service. She rolled her eyes and went inside. Thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. That night, around 2 a.m., I heard barking. Loud, panicked barking. I looked outside, and Champ was tied to my patio table. No leash run. No bull. Just barking and trying to chew through the strap. I opened the door, and he ran to me like I was his last hope. He was soaked in sweat, breathing hard, whining. I checked my doorbell cam. At 1:56 a.m., it showed Tara walking across the street with a duffel bag and rolling suitcase. She crossed over, walked into my yard, tied the dog to my patio table, patted his head, and walked off. Didn't knock. Didn't leave a note. Just left her dog and disappeared. I was in shock. I sent her a text. Me. Your dog is in my yard. What the hell? Tara. Relax. I'm out of town for the weekend. You'll be fine. He loves being there. Thanks. That's it. She dropped her dog like a trash bag and flew off. First thing I did? Took pictures. Timestamped. Video. I recorded everything. Then I made 2 calls. My cousin who works with local animal shelters. Richmond Animal Care and Control. When I spoke to the officer, I explained the whole thing. Showed him the footage through the camera app. Told him I didn't give permission. He asked me a bunch of questions. Was the dog aggressive? No. Was it in danger? Yes, no water, no shelter, middle of the night, dumped illegally on private property. He said, "We'll be there in 20 minutes. They showed up in a truck with Animal Control on the side. I signed a statement. They photographed the patio. The leash. The dog. They were pissed. This is straight up abandonment," one officer said. "She's lucky it wasn't during a heat advisory." They scanned Champ. His microchip wasn't fully registered. He still had the rescue listed as the primary contact. That was another red flag. They loaded him into the truck gently, gave him water, and drove off. I didn't hear from Tara again until Monday night. She pulled into her driveway with sunglasses on, wearing some cheap, Miami Vibes t-shirt. She looked tired, dragging her suitcase behind her like she'd run a marathon. She spotted me sitting on my porch. I was drinking water, quiet. She came stomping across the street like she owned the ground. "Where's Champ?" I took another sip, slow. "Gone." "Gone? What the hell do you mean gone?" "Animal Control has him. You dumped him in my yard." I called them. She started screaming. Full volume. "That's my dog. You don't get to just..." I didn't say a word. I stood up, pulled my phone out, and showed her the video of her dumping the dog. "Don't try me." She stood there, mouth open, blinking like she forgot how to speak. That's where things start to spiral. It's been 5 days since that night. She's been posting weird things on her Instagram. People are fake. Betrayed by those closest. Everyone's out to get me. She hasn't spoken to me again directly, but she tried complaining to the HOA. Said I stole her dog. But I gave them a copy of the video and the animal control report. That part? Over. But now she started something else. A few hours ago, I got a letter in the mail. From her lawyer. Apparently, she's trying to sue me in small claims court for theft of property and emotional damages. She thinks she has a case. She doesn't. But I'm not backing down. I have everything saved. Videos. Screenshots. Her texts. Her Instagram stories of her flying to Florida while the dog sat in my yard without food. This isn't over. I'll update once the court date is set. The letter from her lawyer was real. I opened it thinking it would be some weak threat. But no. It was an actual lawsuit notice for small claims court. She was suing me for theft of personal property, harassment, emotional distress, wrongful interference with pet ownership. I had to read that last one twice. She was framing it like I kidnapped the dog or tricked her somehow. Like I planned it. Like I set her up. I wasn't even mad. I was impressed. The level of delusion was Olympic. I spent the next 2 days pulling together every single piece of evidence. Here's what I had: doorbell camera footage showing her tying the dog in my yard. Timestamped photos of the dog alone. Her text messages basically admitting she dumped him. Screenshots of her Instagram showing she was in Miami during that time. A copy of the report from Animal Control. But here's the twist. When I called Animal Control to request a copy of their visit notes, they told me Tara had filed a complaint against them. She claimed they stole her dog without proper investigation. They were furious. The officer I originally spoke to, let's call him Officer Lang, called me back personally. Sir, I want to testify if needed. What she did was abandonment. If she wants a fight, she'll get it. He didn't stop there. He told me they had started a formal investigation into Tara. Something about past calls, multiple complaints about the dog being left out, and possible violations with her adoption paperwork. So now, it's not just a petty neighbor feud. It's a legal mess. And she kicked the hornet's nest. That night, I got a knock at the door. It was my next-door neighbor, Mr. Russo. Retired military. Quiet guy. Always mowing his lawn at 7 a.m. Never talks unless he has to. He handed me a USB stick. You're not the only one with a camera, son. She's done this before. I blinked. What do you mean? She left that dog in my backyard back in October. I didn't say anything because she played it off like it was an accident. But I've got it on video. If you're going to court, you'll want this. He walked away before I could thank him. The video on the USB? Clear as day. Tara dragging Champ through the bushes and tying him to Russo's shed. Same move. Then walking away with her phone in her hand like nothing happened. It wasn't an accident. It was a pattern. Now here's where it got weird. 3 days after I filed my court response, I noticed something off. I woke up and found a dead squirrel on my front porch. Not just any dead squirrel, it was placed there. Right in the middle. Not torn up, no blood. Just sitting there. Like an offering. I wouldn't have thought much of it, until the next day. Another squirrel. Same spot. I checked the cameras. Nothing. I moved the furniture. Nothing. Then I saw it. My side gate was unlocked. I always lock it. Always. The lock wasn't broken, just hanging open. Someone had opened it from the inside. But my house was still locked tight. I checked again. Doorbell cam showed nothing. Backyard cam? Offline. Disconnected. I don't believe in ghosts, but I believe in pissed-off neighbors. That weekend, my mailbox was stuffed with a flyer. Bright yellow paper. Big bold letters. Did you know your neighbor kidnaps dogs? It went on about a man who works from home and calls himself a dog lover but steals innocent animals. Followed by some grainy black and white stills, probably screenshots from my camera footage, cropped to make it look like I was leading Champ away. I checked other mailboxes. Same flyer. Everyone on the street got one. I called the HOA president. She said Tara hand-delivered them. I told her everything. I sent the actual, unedited video. She said, word for word, if she's not careful, she's going to get herself sued. Monday morning, I opened my business email. I had 34 messages. Half were from strangers. Half were from dummy accounts. All had one theme. Why would you hurt a dog? I hope you rot. Champ deserves better. You're disgusting. Some had threats. She had posted about me on Facebook, Nextdoor, and Craigslist. She even wrote a blog post on Medium, calling me the monster behind the screen, and tagging local dog shelters. She was trying to ruin me. She didn't know that I kept everything. I sent takedown notices, flagged the posts, sent legal letters. Still, the damage started creeping in. One of my longtime clients asked if I was in trouble with animals. I explained. They were cool. But still, just having to explain made me boil inside. The court date is scheduled for next month. I have 2 witnesses, 4 videos, official reports, and a neighborhood full of people who've had enough of her. Her blog is still up. The investigation by animal control is active. And now someone is leaving dead animals on my porch and unlocking my gates. I don't know how far she's willing to take this. But I'm ready. She started this. She walked onto my property. She lied. She dumped a living animal and went on vacation. Then tried to make me the villain. No ending yet. But when it comes, I'll post it. And I'll post every single detail. After the flyers and emails, things calmed down for a bit. Tara stopped walking across the street. No more loud music. No more passive-aggressive lawn stares. I figured maybe someone warned her to cut it out. Or maybe animal control had said something. Then I got a call from Officer Lang again. "You're going to want to hear this," he said. "There's a situation with the rescue group where she got the dog. You know that microchip Champ had? It's registered to the rescue still. She never finalized the adoption." I was confused. She had Champ for months. "That's the thing," he continued. "She was supposed to finish the paperwork and home inspection. She skipped both. They never approved her adoption. They just let her foster for 30 days. She never brought him back. Wait. So she basically stole the dog. 2 days later, I get a knock on my door. It's a woman named Jill, holding a folder. She runs the dog rescue. Local nonprofit that works with shelters and fosters. She asked if I was the one who called animal control. I said yes. She looked relieved. "You probably saved that dog's life," she said. Turns out Champ, whose actual rescue name was Buddy, had originally come from a high-kill shelter in North Carolina. He had heartworms, was underweight, and had been mistreated before. The rescue pulled him, treated him, and placed him in foster care with strict rules: no outdoor-only homes, no full-time kennels, no young children, no apartments, and most importantly, final approval only after a home check and 30-day trial. Tara got the foster approval, picked Buddy up, and never came back. They called, emailed, texted. She ignored them. They figured she just ghosted and gave up. Jill said they marked her down as "do not adopt," and moved on, thinking the dog was lost. Turns out Tara changed his name to Champ, got a fake dog tag printed, and kept him. She wasn't even supposed to have him. The moment Jill learned that Tara was suing me, she lit up like a Christmas tree full of rage. She filed a lawsuit? After stealing our dog? Oh no. No. She's done. They already had a lawyer because of past legal issues with other failed adoptions. She said they were going to file a formal report for theft and neglect and submit all their documents to animal control and the court. It was no longer just me versus Tara. It was me and the rescue, backed by official documentation, videos, and reports, against one neighbor who thought she could bully people into babysitting a dog she never legally owned. But somehow, that's still not the end. You remember Mr. Russo, my older neighbor who gave me video proof of Tara dumping Champ in his yard months ago? He came by again. This time, he wasn't calm. "You said she's suing you, right? You need to see this." He handed me a manila envelope. Inside were printed screenshots from Facebook Marketplace. And I'm not kidding when I say this. Tara had listed Champ for sale. $400. Trained golden retriever, great with families, low maintenance. The date on the listing? 2 days before she dropped him in my yard. She deleted the listing within hours. But Russo had screenshotted it. He had seen it when browsing for used lawn equipment. He didn't think much of it at the time. He didn't recognize the dog's new name. But now, he connected the dots. She tried to sell him. Nobody bought him. So she dumped him on me and left the state. Let that sink in. She had no legal right to own him. She listed him for sale online. When that failed, she tied him in my yard and flew off to Florida. Then had the audacity to sue me for stealing him. I sent the screenshots to Officer Lang and the rescue. Jill almost dropped the phone. I've never heard someone say, "We're going nuclear," with that much joy in their voice. Their lawyer is now preparing to file charges for theft of rescue property, add her to a national no-adopt list, send the screenshots to the local media, If this goes public, her name will be ruined. Contact Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace to flag her name. Meanwhile, I added all of it to my case file for court. I now have doorbell footage of the dump, screenshots of her sale listing, her text admitting she left the dog, evidence she was never supposed to own the dog, a signed witness statement from Mr. Russo, a statement from the rescue, and a full report from Animal Control. She has, what? A blog post and a bunch of printed flyers? Her court hearing is still weeks away. But word's gotten around. The HOA board had an emergency meeting last night. Someone left a printed copy of her Craigslist ad taped to the mailbox station with the words, "This is who lives among us," written in Sharpie. 2 other neighbors told me Tara offered them $20 to post positive things about her on Nextdoor. They both refused. One said, "She told me if she loses this case, she'll have to move out." So maybe that's the goal. Maybe she wants to drag it out so long, make it so messy, that people just give up and forget. But she picked the wrong one this time. No ending yet. But I'm going to see this through. To the courthouse, the news, or wherever this madness leads. And when it ends, you'll know every detail. We finally got our court date. Small Claims Court, Richmond City Building, mid-morning. I arrived early with Jill from the rescue and Mr. Russo. I had my binder full of evidence, videos, texts, screenshots, statements. Jill had her lawyer. Tara came in 20 minutes late, wearing oversized sunglasses like she was dodging paparazzi. She brought some guy in a blazer who looked like he hadn't read anything. Tara barely looked at me. When the judge called us up, her lawyer started strong, blaming me for harassment, claiming I overstepped by calling Animal Control, and even saying I caused emotional damage by turning the neighborhood against her. He actually said, "This man destroyed my client's reputation. She trusted him, and he betrayed that trust." Then I showed the footage. Tara's face froze. Then I handed over the rescue documents. Jill explained how Tara never completed the adoption, ghosted the organization, and was on their "Do Not Adopt" list. She explained how the microchip never got transferred because Tara vanished. Then I handed over the Facebook Marketplace ad where Tara tried to sell the dog. The judge looked at Tara. "Ms. Redacted, did you try to sell the animal before leaving it tied up in the defendant's yard?" Silence. "Ms. Redacted?" she said, barely above a whisper. "It was just a joke." The room went quiet. Even her own lawyer closed his eyes. That's when things broke. Jill, who had been calm the whole time, slammed her hands on the table and stood up. "You stole that dog. You lied to us. You ignored our calls. And then you tried to sell him? Then you leave him outside in 90 degrees and try to sue the person who saved him? What kind of person does that?" Tara snapped back. "I didn't ask to be judged. I was overwhelmed. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I said nothing. I just sat there. The judge finally spoke. "This case is dismissed. There is no theft here, only gross negligence on the plaintiff's part. I advise you to withdraw before Animal Control or the rescue pursues charges." But Tara wasn't done. Outside the courtroom, as people filed out, she caught up with me. Her voice was shaking. "You ruined my life. You think you're some kind of hero? I trusted you." I turned to face her. "You left a dog tied to my furniture at 2 a.m. without food or water. You didn't ask. You dumped him. And then you tried to sell him online. That's not trust. That's selfish." She started crying. Not a little. Full-on sobbing. Collapsed against her car. Everyone saw. Russo saw. Jill saw. Even her lawyer stood off to the side, arms crossed. One of the older neighbors from our street, Mrs. Ellis, walked by and said to her, "You did this to yourself, dear." Tara didn't respond. Just sat on the pavement with her head in her hands. She deactivated all her social media accounts. Took down the blog post. The flyers disappeared. The HOA formally sanctioned her for spreading false materials around the neighborhood. 3 neighbors wrote official complaints. Then came the kicker. Animal Control filed a misdemeanor neglect charge. It's a fine and mandatory pet ownership education course. But it stays on her record. She tried to keep living in the house, but nobody spoke to her. She stopped waving. Stopped being loud. Just disappeared. Until last week, she listed her home for sale. Sign went up on Friday. A week later, Jill called. She told me something I didn't expect. "We'd like to invite you to meet Charlie." That's Buddy's new name. Turns out, the couple who adopted him, the ones 3 houses down, wanted to invite me to their yard one evening. So I went. Charlie recognized me. He ran up and jumped on me like I was his best friend. The wife, smiling, said, He never does that with strangers. I think he remembers you. I didn't say much. I just scratched his head and sat there a while, watching him play in the grass. Free. Safe. I never wanted a war. I never wanted court. I just wanted to work from home and be left alone. But when someone dumps their problem on you, lies about it, and tries to flip the story, you either take it, or you fight back. And I'm glad I did. I didn't just stop someone from using me. I stopped her from hurting that dog any further. I helped expose the truth. Do I feel sorry for Tara? A little. But only because she did it to herself. This whole thing taught me something. People don't reveal who they are when they smile. They reveal it when you tell them no. And when you do, make sure you mean it.